In today's episode, the Ford cars imported to the UK and the Aussie Ford Fairmont. Hello and welcome to Quarterlight, your car brochure channel, the channel that brings you car brochures like this one from around the world for you to enjoy and bring back those memories. I know it's a very niche subject, but if you're interested in that sort of thing, then please do consider subscribing. So last week we started to look at this brochure. It's a brochure from the 70s. It's actually a UK brochure, but it's on about some of the cars that you could actually bring over or buy in the UK that wasn't really Ford of Europe cars. Last week we looked at the 70s Mustang, which was actually right-hand drive, so a pretty rare model. And then this week we're actually looking at the Australian Ford Fairmont. Now these cars were already imported for you essentially. You just went to a select number of dealerships that had this range of Ford cars. So without further ado, let's have a look at the brochure. So here is today's brochure for Ford Fridays. A simple brochure. It just says Ford imported cars, the key to a different world. Yes, this is a UK brochure from 1977, looking at the cars you could get in selected dealerships in the UK that weren't Ford of Europe cars. So last week we looked at the 77 Ford Mustang. This week, well, it's an Australian Ford. And here it is, the Ford Fairmont GXL sedan and the Ford Fairmont Estate. Big old barges for the UK roads, that's for sure. And it would certainly take a certain type of person to say, you know, a Ford Granada or a Ford Granada Estate wasn't big enough for them and they wanted one of these with much larger V8 engines. I think you just wanted to stand out on UK roads if you pick one of these, because I'm sure they weren't exactly cheap when you factor in sort of import costs. But rather nicely, as it said in this brochure, and if you missed the first episode, I will do a link at the end, but rather nicely with these Fords, they had specialists and parts to actually service these vehicles from new, which was certainly a bit of comfort rather than you grey importing one of these cars yourself. So yeah, the big Fairmont GXL looks like you could just get the GXL and just one engine choice, and we'll have a look at that in a moment, and the even bigger Fairmont Estate. I must admit, I've always loved the Aussie Fairmonts in the 70s. I think they look absolutely fantastic. I'm sure they was amazing to drive with the big V8 engines. There is certainly something about them, so I can certainly understand why someone would be tempted, but like I say, there's a certain amount of commitment in the UK when you're paying the fuel bill compared to similar Granada, I guess. Anyway, let's read the text, look at the images, have a look at the specifications on both these two different models, and then we'll discuss. So the Fairmont GXL sedan. The smooth, powerful Fairmont GXL sets a new standard for long-distance motoring. Designed by Ford of Australia for the wide open spaces of the Australian outback. Its tireless 4.9 litre V8 engine, soft cloth bucket seats and powered windows, steering and brakes give you effortlessly relaxed control under the most demanding conditions. And then we get this rather lovely interior shot. We notice it's an automatic. I do like the steering wheel design actually, there is something about that, and certainly a lot of gauges in there for this particular time period. But continuing reading, it tells us the GXL luxury specifications include a quartz crystal electric clock, prismatic day-night driving mirror, padded sports steering wheel, floor-mounted T-bar gear shift for automatic transmission, and comprehensive instrumentation including tachometer to create a driving environment that is distinctive as it is practical. So yeah, unlike what you would have got in Australia, which would have been a range of Fairmonts, just this model, but I can understand the idea of having one of these high-spec Fairmonts and selling it to a limited number of people in the UK. There really wasn't a need for a full range in the UK. Bit of an unusual one here. It is showing a UK number plate, OHV4R. I've not looked at it, but it certainly looks like a fake plate that's just been added to that picture. And I must admit, when I look at the wheels, I'm not even convinced that car is actually in that street. It does look like it's been superimposed on that very English looking street. But that's just my views. Let me know what you think. We'll look at the specs now. So it shows us the spec levels for this GXL Fairmont sedan. So we get high back reclining front bucket seats with mat pocket at rear, front inertia real seat belts, cloth seat trim, 2-speed windscreen wipers with push button wash wipe and intermittent control, lockable illuminated glove box, power windows front and rear with driver's override control, tinted laminated windscreen, heated rear window, vanity mirror, day-night driving mirror, electric clock, alloy sports road wheels with steel belted radial tyres. So we're certainly seeing here that it's certainly a high spec model, and in 77 to get standard alloy wheels was certainly something a bit unusual. We also get sports handling suspension, grab handles, quartz halogen headlamps, bumper overriders and a vinyl roof. And yeah, it's hard to see that it's got a vinyl roof, but it certainly does have one, and obviously the vinyl roof was there to match the colour of the car. So that's even a little bit special. So quite unusually actually, even though this is an imported car, it's still showing you can get optional equipment. So air conditioning, including tinted side and rear windows, or just the tinted side and rear windows, sliding steel sunroof and in-car entertainment. So specs, a Cruise-O-Matic with T-bar floor shift, steering, positive feel power steering, safety steering column with anti-theft lock, 39.4 foot turning circle. That's quite a big turning circle, but then again it is quite a big car. Brakes, 4-wheel power disc brakes with limited slip differential. Suspension front, heavy duty coil springs with stabilisers, rear semi-elliptic leaf springs with anti-roll bar, and then the engine a big 4.9 litre with a V8. So a lovely 4.9 V8 would have sounded wonderful on those UK streets, and I'm sure it would have turned a few heads for sure. Then it gives you the rest of the engine specs, including the carburettor, which was a twin choke, and then the dimensions. I'm not going to go through all the dimensions, but there you are if you want to pause the screen and have a look at those as well. Now there is a little bit of small print on this brochure too. It tells us this model will not be available in the UK until mid-77. So there you go. What a car to wait for in 77, but gives you an idea of when you might have started seeing these cars. Must confess, I've never seen one on UK roads, so I'm sure they didn't sell a great deal. So the closest thing you get in 77, I guess, from in regards to a Ford Fairmont GXL was probably a Granada gear in your normal Ford showroom, your standard piece of kit. Obviously a lot smaller than a Fairmont. Certainly nowhere near the size of engines your Fairmont had either. So we get a 2.0 litre V6 or 2.8 litre V6 fuel injection. And of course you can have manual or auto in that trim. Certainly a very nice spec level of car, and obviously most people would have chose that. Going down, you can get a GL. This one looks like it has got a vinyl roof in there. Do love these Granadas, I must admit, but certainly I think that's the way I would have gone. It would have taken a certain person to pick a Fairmont and drive that in the UK though. Actually, I guess a Granada S, so the S-Pack Granada probably would have been more closely related to this Fairmont, as it's pretending to be a little bit more sporty. Still having that 2.8 litre V6 fuel injected engine, sport suspension on this, front anti-roll bars and variable rate rear springs, but certainly not the same sort of engine, of course, as your Fairmont. You know, this is also coming with alloy wheels on there as well, and in the Ford tradition in Europe of having a sporty model and throwing on these sort of round halogen driving lamps on there as well. Like I said, it probably would have been my pick. I would have been juggling through which Granada to pick. I don't think I would have been so far thrown to look at Fairmonts in the UK, although certainly if I was in Australia, that's a different thing. I would have got Fairmont. But anyway, this is a 78 Australian Ford cars brochure. And you can see even on the front cover there, we have got a Fairmont GXL. With what it tells us is an optional 4.9 litre V8. So the 4.9 litre V8 would have been an optional engine, so only engine you could get in the UK. And I guess they picked it that way to make it, you know, sound even more impressive for the UK buyer. Looks like exactly the same sort of spec levels though, same mirrors, same alloy wheels on those cars. But of course, Australia had a range of cars. They didn't just have that one model, from sort of your lower spec Falcons and 500 Falcons. And of course, Falcons and Fairmont wagons, which we're going to have a look at in a moment. And then your Falcon in GS hardtop. They do look absolutely wonderful cars there. Your Fairmont sedan, and of course the car that we've been looking at, the Fairmont GXL. Various different engine choices, of course. I think the standard engine for these was a 4.1 litre V6 actually, but like I say, you could option it for that larger V8 engine. So yeah, we did briefly see in Australia you could get the estate version of the Fairmont. So here it is. The Fairmont is a true estate, possibly the finest estate car in the world. Wow. It is designed by Ford of Australia to seat up to 8 passengers in comfort, or to provide massive 82.6 cubic feet of load space with the rear seats folded down. So even here they're kind of like saying, this is a better estate than the Ford home market estate, which is an unusual claim to put in this brochure. Let's read the rest of this passage. We'll come back to the images and we'll see the specs for this one as well. Will it have the same engine? So the Fairmont estate offers more space combined with more power than any European car. It's tireless, low revving 4.9 litre V8. So yes, again, we've got the 4.9 litre V8, which obviously would have been an optional engine on these estate cars, but why not? If you're going to import these cars, you might as well make it the top model. Has some to spare, it tells us, even under full load conditions. Its handling characteristics are superb, and with its progressive feel power steering, it requires only 2.6 turns of the steering wheel from lock to lock. With its two-way rear door that opens both sideways and downwards. Clever design, you kind of like think that's a more modern thing, but here it is on a 70s Fairmont estate. The Fairmont offers versatility, comfort and control unmatched by any other estate car. And there it is. And certainly compared to any other estate car in Europe, that really is an estate with all of the space. Bit of an unusual place to stick your spare tyre, I thought. That's not the best, I wouldn't say, but still offers a fair bit of room. And I always love, I know you don't really see it anymore, but I always love when the back folds down like that and actually gives you a little bit of a place to sit down. Looks like just a one-piece folding rear seat. So pretty basic in that regard, but certainly a very practical estate car. This one even coming with a bit of a roof rack by the looks of it. And then the image to one side, again looking like it's had a fake number plate superimposed on it, OHV3R. Not looked at these, but I'm sure it's not a proper plate, or certainly not a proper plate, and probably doesn't belong to this Fairmont estate. But anyway, here it is. Apparently this one's got the optional third seat option as well, making it a super practical car for its time. But would it really be that practical in the UK? It would certainly be a very thirsty engine. 70s fuel prices weren't exactly cheap in the UK compared to other places in the world, so you'd have to have deep pockets to move your family around, where you could argue the Fairmont GXL sedan spent all its days in a garage and you just drove it to shows at the weekend, where this is trying to be a practical car. So I would imagine there would be even less Fairmont estates, but I do love them and I would absolutely love to have one. I must admit, I think they are fantastic, and I think estates, or wagons as we should probably call it, as this is an Australian car, have really lost their place, and I think that's really sad. I think they are possibly one of my favourites. So I guess they're advertising this, they're showing hunting scenes, aren't they, in this, so it's almost trying to say, obviously it's appealing to the more well-off, I guess, but it's also trying to say maybe this is an alternative to a Range Rover. Maybe that's where they were heading with this. Anyway, let's look at the specs. So what do we get on this lovely wagon? Well, standard features include high-back reclining front bucket seats with centre armrest, front inertia reel seat belts, vinyl trim. Oh, your unusual, just vinyl trim. I'm sure if that was offered in Australia, that would not be overly pleasant in the hot weather. But anyway, 2-speed windscreen wipers with intermittent control and anti-lift vane, 3-speed heater demister, lockable glove box, power windows front and rear with driver's override control, so that's certainly nice and showing it is a high-spec model. A power tailgate window as well, which is certainly a nice feature. Carpeted load space, driver's door mirror, day-night driving mirror, electric clock, full wheel covers, steel belted radial tyres, quartz halogen headlamps, bumper overriders, integral chrome roof rack. And then some optional equipment. Now it says optional equipment, but like I said, I presume the car would already be in the UK, so it might be just a case of ticking some boxes and hoping that somewhere in the country that they have the model you want. So it tells you can have optionally air conditioning with tinted side and rear windows, or just tinted side and rear windows. Cloth seat trim. Oh, nice, you can at least upgrade to cloth. Tinted laminate windscreen, 4-wheel power discs with limited slip differential on the estate. Nice. Fold away rear-facing bench seat for 2 children. Alloy sports road wheels on the estate, again rather nice. In-car entertainment, refer to your imported car dealer. So suspension front, heavy duty coil springs with stabilisers, rear semi-elliptic leaf springs with anti-roll bar, and again it's coming with that 4.9 litre V8 engine. And again the rest of the specifications, and if you don't mind me just moving the camera down manually, at the bottom there is the rest of them. Maximum towing limit, £4,047, so you could put quite the caravan on the back of this one. Again, this one says not available until mid-77. So there we are, my friends, another one of these lovely cars you could get from selected Ford dealers, this time from Australia, if you really wanted to stand out. And wow, it's a big car to stand out on British roads. But thank you so much for watching today. Next week there's actually one more episode, so there is one more car that we'll have a look at next week. But we'll end, as we always do, by saying please do consider subscribing. It's all completely free, helps the channel, helps you keep in touch with the channel, see new episodes as they arrive. But there is over 800 episodes, so if you look in the back catalogue now, you'll certainly see something you'll enjoy, I'm sure. Maybe it's something from the Aussie Ford Cars brochure. I'll add a couple of boxes here for other episodes. The previous episode for this Fairmont GXL, the Ford Mustang, I'll put down here. And who knows, I might put an episode from this Aussie Ford Cars brochure up here somewhere. But thank you so much for watching today. It's been a pleasure as always. Please do take care, and we'll see you again very soon. All the best and goodbye.